I had such a lovely, lovely time, interacting. It did not feel like an interview at all. It felt like I was talking to a friend. So,
Exactly. This is why I was so heartbroken. But nothing. I'm sure that the second time around is gonna be even better, Amrita, and I'm gonna record in two different places this time around. I'm just going to cover all the bases. You never know. You never know. So,
right, right.
but
So,
again, thank you so much
of
for
course.
speaking to me on such short notice. And I know Natalie was such a doll. She also was. She's like these things happen. So I'm just so happy that both of you are so understanding.
You have been a fabulous human being to talk to, and I think good people draw good things. So, Giselle, just let's get done what we need to do.
Mhm.
And I can tell you this: when Natalie got back to me, not even for a moment I hesitated in clearing out my calendar because, one is that this conversation is critical for people to know. And
Mhm.
B is that you spoiled me. You were one of the nicest people I spoke to. So,
Oh, well, you deserve it, Amrita. And if people are not treating you well, you let them know that no, that you already know how you deserve to get treated. So, my love, give me a moment so I can start recording the
yeah.
call via the phone. Give me 5 seconds, and let's hope that this time it cooperates. All right, Amrita, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Is everything working all right?
Should be, yes. So let's see. I'm only gonna be able to find out once we hang up and if everything
Mm-hmm.
goes well, but I'm pretty confident that it will. And although I'll be very honest with you, Amrita, I remember the majority of what we spoke about, but I guess I was just so nervous that I didn't want to get things wrong. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to ask you similar questions even though
Okay.
I understand that you're on the first phase of the research, and
Mm-hmm.
then we're gonna go into the second phase,
Mm-hmm.
and how important it is for the community to understand their traumatic connection, the
Mm-hmm.
connection with their trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we can even dive in a little deeper this time around.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, Giselle, and I've done this before with a couple of other recording sessions. If you want to stop before we dive into the main part and check if the phone is actually recording, I'm happy to do that.
yes.
So that yeah.
Well, it gave me the okay that it is recording, and I'm also recording on my computer, which is why you're on speaker as well. So you're being
Okay.
recorded on both places. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good. 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 All right. So
Hmm.
I hear you. Let's dive into what you feel we must explore, and I will follow your lead. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Amrita.
Mm-hmm.
And I just to make sure that my memory has not failed me, you were born in India, right?
That is right.
Okay, perfect. So yes, now since we spoken, there's been other announcements regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and everything that's going on around the world. Um, and again, since I remember a lot of our original conversation, I just want to
Mm.
ask you this. How do you think now that traveling in the United States seems like it's opening up more so than other countries in the United States, do you think this is something that could help, or do you think this is going to cause anxiety or maybe provoke more of those trauma responses to other people around the world who do not have the same flexibility as those in the United States, for instance?
Mm. Mm. Well, that's a very thoughtful question. So that's a very thoughtful question. You see, the opening up of the travel opens up a lot of questions, and depending on where we are in the economies, where we are in the nations, where we are within the communities, because the truth is that it's not same for any of us. It is an event that is all right, you can travel, but if you are someone who uh, has experienced the trauma at its severest form, whether it is loss in the family, whether it's loss of employment, whether it's loss, of several of your colleagues and friends who have gone through similar trauma, then you're probably experiencing trauma at its hardest. And when you are looking at those of us who have been blessed and protected, and for us, COVID at best meant just staying at home while we had our paychecks coming in and our loved ones have been safe all over the world, and our health has been good, and thanks to all the blessings we have in our life that we've been able to take care of ourselves, then we are experiencing trauma at the lighter end of it. Mm-hmm. So we are somewhere in the continuum, and the first thing to understand is no matter which angle we look at, there is going to be a continuum for where we are placed. The reality is not the same for any of us. Now, if I belong to as a person of color in an underserved community and I am a woman, chances are that my trauma might be a little more severe, because United Nations published a report in 2020, and then there was a UN report for women in 2020 where it was predicted that women and people of color and underserved communities would bear the hardest brunt. Now apply this to your question. All over the world, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Middle East, and no matter where it is, in Africa, no matter where it is on the continents, if there are communities who have been hardest hit, this travel will provoke extreme levels of anxiety and paranoia, because the vaccination too has been very unequal in its distribution. There are tons of people who still are without the basic health care. And we are hearing it in India, how things have spiraled out of control. So to take all of these examples and to look at it, we have to understand that responsibility lies with those who are blessed on the other side of the spectrum. If we've been lucky and our health has been good, our loved ones have been safe, then we have to be more responsible in how we travel and what happens when we come back to the United States. Because it is, we are the point of origin. And similarly, for those places that we are about to visit, we have to be very, very, very sensitive and gentle and compassionate when we travel, to understand that they may not have experienced the privileges that we might be blessed to do so. Does that make sense?
It does. And thank you so much for giving me such a diligent answer, Amrita. The other thing that I wanted to ask, and I know that the whole basis of your research is based on that collective trauma, but prior to understanding that collective trauma, and this is, I guess, more so for the participants of the research, is there any way that people can distinguish individual markers of trauma that will then in turn be identifiers of the collective trauma that the world has endured?
Wow. I would be much better positioned to answer that question after the study, because I would have gotten concrete data. However, I think there is wisdom in considering what this question truly means, because this question is very meaningful. You see, as individuals, we know we are very complex and our histories are very complex. What is trauma? We established in our previous call that trauma, we understand in English, if we use that language, that it is woundedness and it is deep hurt. However, trauma has another meaning, which most people don't know, which is Traum, a German word, Traum. Traum in German, if you looked it up, it means a daydream, a dream, a signifying, a shaping event. So falling in love is a positive trauma. Finding your favorite job is a positive trauma. Moving into the house you always wanted to move and living a life that is a dream is a positive trauma, as opposed to loss. Now, most of the time, if we look at this, again, if you draw a straight line, one end of it is the dis-ease of it, the extreme end of it, which we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So if you were to draw a line, on one end of the line is PTSD. Now, when we say PTSD, it's urgent, it needs immediate care and immediate attention, and a long-term one. Now, that percentage is something that we have to look at, because overall in the United States, it is anywhere from 3 to 7%. And through COVID, no studies have been done so far. And through COVID, I can tell you that percentage is going to increase. So that's around 9.5 million people of us, yes?
Mhm.
Globally, the PTSD numbers are anywhere from 7 to 8%. Now, that's the number as it stands, published in different medical reports and, in Veterans Affairs and all of that. Now, what happens to the rest of the line? So if the percentage of trauma is, let's just average it out at 8%, that means 92% of the rest of the line has grown. So if one end is disease, then the other end must be growth, right?
Yes.
So 92% of us have grown. We have grown in different ways. We have responded to in different levels of resilience, levels of hardiness, levels of emotional growth, but we don't have language for it. So the reason I explain this is you keep this in front of your eyes as I say what I'm about to say next. We all have gone through pain, and pain simply means a disappointment, a shattering of belief, a shattering of assumption. I expect reality to be a certain way, but it turns out to be something else. Now, whether it is in your love relationship, whether it is at work, whether it is with life, no matter which angle you look at it, it is a disappointment. It is a loss of reality. Now, this is called shattered assumptions. I mean, that's the word for it. So when we go through shattered assumptions, for instance, assault, my home is supposed to be safe for me. Now, one of the premier causes of death for women in the United States, surprisingly, is domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is trauma. Yes. Now, that, of course, would put people, chances are, in the farthest end of PTSD. But if an assault happens for a child, if an assault is witnessed by a child, or say, unfortunately, someone witnessed it, there was alcoholism in the family, or there was a disease in the family, and someone experienced that with a sibling, or lost the sibling, or experienced divorce, or experienced miscarriage and abortion, experienced all of these are all losses. These are signifying significant events in life, which means these are traumas. They shape us as human beings. So at an individual level, whether we are of a certain gender, even, coming out and being accepted in the alternate gender that I'm embracing has been a very rough experience for many people. So now when I'm giving these examples, why? Because each one of us has a different level of expression, and we disclose things differently. We reveal or self-disclose differently. The higher the level of pain, the higher would be either my need to shield or my need to express. Now, if I am comfortable, and this is the individual marker you were talking about, if I am comfortable being vulnerable, and I know the boundary between healing and mending, that is seeking help, and whether it's exercise, whether it's therapy, whether it's creating a support community, if I know the balance, then chances are I'm dealing well with my trauma. But if I feel that I am a puppet to these impulses, that, for instance, let me give an example. For instance, say I get angry all the time and I don't know why I'm getting angry. Mm-hmm. Every time. I mean, no matter, people around me who witness me would say, she's very unpredictable. She just gets angry at any point of time. Now, I'm using the word anger. It could be sadness. It could be disproportionate reaction to any event. If somebody has been giving you feedback that your reaction is disproportionate to whatever was the event, then chances are you're not dealing well with it. Now, let's look at this and these are, again, I'm saying it at a very high level. Now, take it as a collective. Each one of us experience anxiety in a very uniquely individual way. But what are the common markers is that anxiety makes you feel out of control. It tells you you don't have a choice. It tells you that you have to compromise with yourself. You have to repress your freedom. Collectively, we have gone through these 4 markers all over. Now, the whole world is coming out of it in a very different way. As of today, we have no study that says, how is it that collectively we are coming out of this trauma? And here's why, Guisell, because we don't have a language for it. We only have a language for dis-ease, which is the extreme. Now, all of us are not diseased. And so collectively, we have to understand, how has the world changed? Does reality offer us a new grammar of growth that our children and great-grandchildren would say? Because this is our war. Yeah. We experienced a war. Now, how are we coming out of this? Now, most of the time, history teaches us that wars are political, wars are religious, wars are economic.
Yep.
But this war has been an emotional war. You know, our mental health has been the biggest territory, if you will, of fight. Can you survive this? Can you survive this emotionally? And so I think we have to look at, and that's the reason why I'm seeking 100 people. Why I am not saying, I'll just interview 10 students, I'll just interview people in Philadelphia, I'll just interview the white or just the Hispanics or just African Americans or just the Asians. I'm not saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this is going to be a 3-phase study, because Guisell, the truth is that I do not have enough life left to do as much work that needs to be done. This is the beginning of study of growth coming out of collective trauma. The previous world wars, the Holocaust, the Spanish Civil Wars, the Wounded Knee Massacre, all of these things, and I'm just taking a few names, you know, the massive Ponzi schemes or, you know, the global recessions. We have all come out of it differently, but we've all remembered it as hugely negative events on the collective history.
Mm-hmm.
We have never seen history from how we've come out of it stronger, with more choice, with more growth, with more options for being equal in the world than how the world was before this started.
And this is how you mentioned emotional war. Mind-blowing, because it's true. There's no other way to describe what has happened within the last year and a half. And of course, in terms of collective drama and using that to heal ourselves and then to also empower humanity overall, that is the ultimate goal. But I know that a lot of the readers are going to be wondering, what is it? How is it that you envision? And I'm sure we're still speaking about, we're in the hypothesis level, of course. But, if you were to share what you envision in terms of, the study or the research, how is it that, these shared experiences or what will be that defining piece that will allow human beings to take these shared experiences and use it to their advantage rather than their disadvantage, or rather than looking at it as a disadvantage? How can we rewire humanity's mentality on what has happened? Because we're talking about loss, we're talking about the anxiety, we're talking about the uncertainty, which is what's been wired into the world's mentality for the last year and a half. Now, how do we rewire it using this study or whatever the outcome is? What do you say?
Well, first, I think you should belong to the research group, because you're just amazing. And just the way you're thinking about it, because it's precisely that. It's precisely that, Guisell, what you just said. Post-traumatic growth, just the combination of these words, acknowledges 3 things. First, it's a movement forward. It's going towards the future because it's post. Traumatic means I don't deny what happened. To accept is a whole process. And growth, what happens after the event, because the hardest part is the crisis, and in crisis we become very teachable. So what are those moments where our learning shows up? So the first thing to remember is post-traumatic growth, or PTG as it's known as, is both a process and an outcome. It is both. Second, it is to understand that it is about dealing with either intentional or unintentional change. COVID-19 crisis, the pandemic, is an unintentional change in all of our lives. None of us said, in 2020, let's all promise to go through a pandemic. Nobody said that.
Yeah.
So this was an unintentional change. The question is, many of us used it as a springboard to renewal of our identity.
I like that.
Now, how did we make that choice? So you see, at the bottom of it all, it comes down to decisions and power to make choice. There are some of us who found hope in the darkness. Now, how did we find that? What did those individuals do? Because it is shared, right? Each one of us is going through the same conditions of COVID, same threats of death, same threats of loss. And yet some of us have made it a process from trauma to triumph. How did we do that? It's not just resilience. It's not just emotional hardiness. It's not just positive psychology. So you see, there are many, many variables that have acted together for one particular thing. The choice to be more. The choice to be more in face of crisis. So it is like this rite of passage that I am personally going through, and I'm sharing it with the rest of the humanity, moving towards the future. Do I have the courage to thrive? And what do I need to do? Because you see, we call heroes those people who truly have been at the front end of it, the healthcare workers, the essential workers. But what about everyday moms and dads?
Mm-hmm.
What about everyday daughters and sons, sisters and siblings and partners and lovers and husbands and wives? What about them? Every morning you've gotten up and dealt with, children who are going through a locked-in syndrome, parents you can't see because you're not allowed to visit for their safety, places you can't go, travel you can't undertake. Your whole freedom as you knew was completely shattered. How did you wake up every day and decide you will love differently? Despite the constraints, you will live differently. You will bring in joy. You will watch your children grow. For 20 years, you never saw how your children grew up. For 20 years, you never saw how your partner dealt with reality or crisis. We have figured out a complete new GPS because the old GPS is not working. So if you were to draw a triangle, Guisell, and on the triangle, on one point, the top point, you write self. On the other point, to your left, you write others. And in the third end of the triangle, you write the world. You see, this GPS works this way. I always ask myself, who am I to myself? Who am I to those I love, which is the others? And what is my place in the world? It is this hypothesis that will tell me that people who are able to use trauma or crisis as a point of renewal, rebirth, metamorphosis, are people who are able to upgrade their internal operating system, internal GPS. The how of it will come as a result of the study. But that is my hypothesis. My belief is if 92% of people are growing, then there is a pattern. We might be too early in the phase of study to say what the pattern is, but I will tell you this, that there is an innate wisdom in humanity, in the kindness and the compassion. Just look at how many movements have taken place all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, how did COVID lead to such emancipation? Just if I take United States, racism was the biggest not spoken factor of United States history. Look at the movement that took place.
Absolutely.
Sexual harassment at work was the not spoken, and look at how it blew up while we were going through COVID. So everything that was oppressed came out.
Yep.
How is it so? We are in the Pride Month right now, right?
Yes.
So see how much happened because of this. So I'll pause right now just to understand that. Does it make sense? It is the integration. It is the integration and resynthesis, the rebecoming of ourselves. Because one of the things about going into future is we have to unlearn, learn, and relearn our life. Life is talking to us. Are we listening and are we learning? That's what the hypothesis is. And those of us who learn better, quicker, and are listening to life because our life is talking to us, we grow faster. But that's what the hope of the study is, that we figure out the how. There is no language to it, Guisell, because you grow differently and I grow differently. But someone has to sit and study. And that's what I'm hoping to do with the study. Is this helpful?
Oh, absolutely. And something that I really enjoyed that you just said was the choice to be more. The choice to be more. And of course, taking this experience and applying it to real life scenarios and then regrowing, and then I guess is shifting your minds, among other things. But the choice to be more is something that I think that we're seeing a lot, in regards to what people were doing with themselves and in terms of their employment. There's like a paradigm shift on their worth, right? And I think this all comes from that growth from that trauma. And also from having that ample amount of time to reflect on what they were also oppressing. Like they didn't think, that they had the option to do other things, right? So I just find that that's very fascinating.
Yes, because if adults, and this is why my study is based on adults, adults have one particular superpower which we don't use as much because we're so distracted, and COVID took away those distractions, is reflection. We as adults always have this superpower of looking at what did I do, what happened, and what did I do. And when we start looking at that, we begin to have new definitions of how we are using our freedom. See, we all want freedom.
Yes.
That is given. We all love to be free. But the question is free for what?
I love
And
that.
what is the quality of freedom? What am I doing with this freedom? Am I living better? Am I being better? Do I have the courage to be better? Do I have the courage to really look at my relationships, the harm that I might be doing to myself, or the growth that I am denying myself? Once people start looking at that, they start truly seeing reality for what it is. And that is why you are resonating so strongly with the statement, the choice to be more, because you say, I don't have to put up with this. I don't have to conform for the sake of conforming. There is a better way to exist. And this is not just for you and me, but this is for the planet as well.
Absolutely.
There has to be a better way. And it has nothing to do with, previous Generation X, millennials, and Z. Sometimes those are used as false labels. We have to be careful about that, because the wisdom of being more is common across all humans. We cannot use them as false dividers. And that is also something we have to have the grace and humility to understand, that just because somebody is younger or older than us does not mean that there is any, absence of wisdom. Sometimes a child will say something profound, as will someone who's 18, as will someone who's 88.
Oh, absolutely.
Wisdom is accessible to everyone.
And that's interesting that you mentioned these generational divides, because oftentimes I feel like it invalidates so many things, that we should just take the opportunity to pay attention what other people are saying. Number one is common courtesy, and number two, we can learn from each other. And there's no way, and there's nowhere where it says that we learn more from someone who's older than younger, or in between. Once we're learning, whatever that gift or that teaching is that is being placed in front of us, it's there. And it might not come in the packaging that we want it, but it's there.
Right. I'm going to ask Natalie to convince you to join my research team, if that's all right with you. I'm saying it on the record.
That's totally fine. I'm all for it, Anita. I would be honored.
Yes, because what you said is the root of two terms: compassion and synthesis. Compassion for ourselves, compassion for others, and compassion for the world we live in. Because really, we share this existence. It's not just your existence or mine. We share this. We might be experiencing this in a very individual way, but our existence, along with Mother Earth and Mother Nature, is shared.
Oh, absolutely.
That is important to remember.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure I asked you this last time, but this is where I'm going to start piecing the puzzle from my brain. Now, who was there, perhaps a philosopher, or or someone who influenced you, a historical figure who influenced you to begin this research?
Okay. Well, let me put it this way. And I will trust you to use this the best way that you can, because I trust you, Guisell.
Yes.
Just the questions you have asked me. I have had many, many intellectual teachers and philosophers that I'm deeply influenced by. But what has been my biggest teacher, it has been life herself. And my own growth through trauma, and all the help that I've received has been a profound acknowledgement that the capacity to grow is infinite. When I came across the field of post-traumatic growth, I came across several authors and several people who were all looking at it in a very different way based on, where they were in time.
Mm-hmm.
And the history of trauma has a very rich literature and all of that available. But you see, we are shy. Nobody wants to say that I understand pain so well.
Mm-hmm.
But when I looked at my own life, I understood that we run away from pain because pain has a bad PR,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants pain. But pain is the invisible hand that is gently and constantly shaping our behaviors. So if you were to ask me, I would say there's this, Buddha comes closest to me. I am a practicing Buddhist, and I travel that path every day. I hope to travel that path every day when I wake up. But my belief is that everybody has the capacity for incredible growth. And I take that to be my lighthouse. No matter how stormy the sea is and how far I am out. But I believe that every person has a chance to grow, because Kurt Lewin, and that's the name, Kurtlewin, way back in 1960 said, behavior is the function of the person in the environment.
I like that.
Behavior is the function of the person in the environment, which means this saying is the root of anthropology, sociology, economics, psychology, cultural anthropology, name it. Every humanity comes from this particular truth that behavior is the function of the person in the environment, which means if I look at it as 100% of the population, 6 to 8% of the population are in dis-ease, which means 92% of us humans have capacity for growth.
Yes.
So that gives me hope. That makes me optimistic. And so when I see children, in prams, and I'm not thinking, oh God, you have a lifetime of education and find a job and then student debt. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking maybe there will be a better world for you by the time you grow up.
That's nice. Yes. That's a great way. And I love, I love Buddhism. I love, all the different teachers that, inspire. That's why I'm like, there has to be someone, or in life, of course, being the biggest teacher, always going to be the biggest teacher. And everyone's life is their own different teacher, which I'm always fascinated by, because, the person next to you can have such a different perspective on just what they went through in their childhood or what they went through the night before. So it's just so interesting. And then, and again, piecing everything together, I do remember that before you started this research, um, you were assigned, you were doing an assignment, right, for your class in university, right?
So yes, so this was 2019 when, as a part of so I'm doing my dissertation much later in life. I have a work experience of nearly 25 years. So I was a banker before this, and so I'm coming to PhD much later in life. And as I was going through my journey, 2019 is when I took a class on post-traumatic growth, and nobody else was taking it that time. So I was the only student, and then there was another. And when I was going through this field, which is so new, that I was mind blown that this exists. It exists at the level of growth it has experienced. How come there is not more research in it? And I wrote in the paper that as I was studying man-made disasters and natural disasters and ecological disasters and economic disasters, that all of these disasters, whether man-made, nature-made, or hand of God, it is all contained in small locations. It has only happened to them. It has only happened there. But there isn't a way that we have understood how collective trauma works. Because it is all very dividing, the way we understand pain. We have never looked at pain being the thread that combines us all uniformly. That pain is equal to all of us. We may have different ways of dealing with it, different levels of expressing it, but pain is what joins us together like the glue of life. And that's what I wrote in my paper, that, we have to be more respectful. We are a generation of instant pleasure, instant gratification. But we cannot turn our face away from the fact that pain is the giant, invisible, and a gentle teacher that is consistently shaping us. Just because we keep it implicit does not mean that it is not there. Our denial of it never takes its role away from us. So that's what I wrote in the paper. And, that was like August 2019 when I wrote that paper. And January 2020, we were in COVID. And I remember my teacher came back and said, "Are you feeling guilty?" I said, "Yeah, I'm feeling very guilty." My intentions were very positive, but this was not what I was asking for. And that's when my teacher said something that blew me away. His name is Miguel Guerte, and he's my teacher, Dr. Miguel Guerte. And he said, "You were given this idea because you have the capacity to fulfill it."
Amazing. Wow.
So now it's my destiny and I will fulfill it. Frankly, Guisell, I think I found the reason I was born.
Yes. And I think this is your calling. You're so passionate about it, and the way that you speak about it it drives me in, and I'm sure that our audience are going to be driven into it as well. Just of how you're so elaborate and how you describe it and you go into detail with it. I just love it, and I'm super excited to see, the success of the research and what the results are, which I know you say that we might not, because it's going to take a while and we might not have the results all at once or for a long time. But just the fact that you are starting this, and just the fact that, you're working towards getting, these very important answers. I just love it.
So thank you so much for blessing this. Really, if the audience was to ask me what's the most important request, my most important request to them would be to trust themselves.
Mhm.
That there is something in the pain that will release something not only for themselves but with others. That their pain is not in vain. That there is something beautiful that has grown through them. But that can only come out when we start looking at it as a process to be explored, not a process to be denied. And if people came and participated in this study and were honest with themselves, they would see that they have grown. But it is like a dance. You can only dance alone this much. It's only when you dance with someone else through a conversation in a safe way, that's when you discover that you truly are more than what you think you are,
Yes, yes. And now I remember the components of their research, but
Mhm.
you were getting 100 plus participants for the first
Yes.
phase. The data is going to be collected via video interviews and transcripts, right? And
Right.
then you foresee that the second phase will be towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, correct?
Yeah, so if we go through it, so till I was hoping that by June, mid-June or end of June, I have at least 100 participants. July onwards, I'm beginning the interviews. I would hope to be done by end of October and, then publish all of this by end of October, December, howsoever the study might take.
Mhm.
And then the third phase would begin next year when I apply for maybe 1,000 people to study, because this is just the first 100.
Mhm.
And so this is like a pilot. My dissertation study would be, this is the place I can do it within a smaller number. If I get 100 people, I do it for 100. And then I can use this as a basis to go to 1,000 and go to other universities and, study this more. But you're right. That's the third phase, and that'll begin next year.
Third phase will begin next year, and just the first phase is getting those 100 participants. Second
Yes.
phase is getting them approved,
Yes.
and then they're going to give you their experiences via videos.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
perfect. Just making sure that I have the information accurate too, and then. And I'm not sure if you mentioned this last time, if you were working on any other projects aside from this one or after this one.
So between you and me, I have left everything to work on this. because, this just requires that kind of dedication. I am still teaching at Penn, and I'm still teaching at Wharton, and I still have some of my business work that I'm doing. But I have cleared out my life mostly to dedicate myself to this research right now. I think it's going to be that for the next 2-3 years. So, the universe is taking care of most of the things. And my hope is that I truly can serve this cause in a right way.
Oh, and I'm sure you will. And I'm sure you will, Rita. And I know we went through this last time, but at UPenn and at Wharton, you teach, what's the subject that you teach?
So and this is important to get it right. So many journalists are not able to get it right. So I teach at University of Pennsylvania with organizational dynamics.
Organizational dynamics.
Okay. That's where my basis is. At Wharton, I am invited as a lecturer. So I lecture at Wharton when they invite me. And the topics that I teach are power, politics, coaching, group dynamics, post-disruptive growth after COVID. So that's one of the things I'm teaching right now. I am also the leading faculty for the executive coaching certificate that happens in organizational dynamics. I'm also responsible for virtual collaboration and of key stakeholders. And I work with nations and governments and, corporates and non-for-profit. So that's what my work portfolio is.
Perfect. No, and I'll make sure that either way I'll verify with Natalie. But so just to verify, UPenn organizational dynamics, yes. And then at Wharton you're a lecturer, and okay, perfect.
So a great way to frame it would be she is invited as a lecturer to Wharton.
Okay, perfect.
That would be an appropriate way. She's invited as a lecturer to Wharton.
Okay, perfect. I'll definitely word it that way. Thank you so much, Amrita. And finally, do you have any words of anything else you want to add? Words of inspiration, motivation, anything for the Be Latina audience?
Well, Be Latina audience, you have my heart, you have my hope, you have my grace, because this community that Be Latina is, I'm not a stranger to this. I have incredible friends from whom I have received love. So the fact is that the community has grown, that the community loves the way it loves. Nobody loves us freely as our community. So my request is that they accept themselves, they respect themselves, they honor who they are, because really, it's very hard to be human in this period, and I think this community has really stayed human, as I have had the joy of witnessing and sharing this period with them.
Thank you. I'm sure they're going to be very happy to read that, and we're here to also just support each other, community to community or not. We're just, again, all human. So just really excited to get this out once and for all, because I want everyone to learn about this. And now,
Guisell, thank you. Now, before you close, and whenever you close, I just, on the record, I just have to ask you this, human to human, how are you feeling about this? This is not just a story for you. I understand your sincerity, your honesty. It has truly touched me. It's important for me to ask you, how are you feeling? How does the truth sit with you?
Oh, I mean, as soon as we hung up a few weeks ago, my partner, she's actually, a therapist, and obviously trauma and all of these things are something that we speak about in the household often, right? Her mother is also a psychologist, so this is not that's why I guess, not that I'm well versed in it, but I'm very comfortable in speaking about trauma because of how often I hear it at home. Now, I was just blown away by it. Initially, I'm still blown away by it. And when I spoke to her, obviously in confidence, while I was preparing, my thoughts to get this out, I was like, this is something that I feel is going to be historical, and I truly feel this way, and I feel very positive that this is going to touch many people. Like, this is
Mm,
going to touch their lives, and is going to allow people's minds to shift away from the negativity that we've been fed for so long prior to, this traumatic event. So I'm very excited about it. And I'm constantly thinking of ways on how to augment, the human experience. Not that I'm any, any type of, influencer or whatever. I'm not, but at least on the local level, when it's like with my friends or my loved ones, or coworkers, colleagues, just making sure that the light is shining at all times, and
mhm,
finding that right path, rather, because again, life is everyone's biggest and most influential teacher, and just like your life has had, a lot of teachings, my life has had a lot of, very
mm,
peculiar teachings as well, that has allowed me to, take a step and think about things a little bit more than, I
mm,
guess, human beings usually do, just because of how much trauma has I've endured, right? And
right.
I think that's why I feel so identified with this research, just because of, that trauma element. I'm just very familiar with it.
Giselle, I can tell you this, that your humility and your grace and your openness is heartwarming. I mean, whatever is in your voice, I truly wish I could meet you in person, and give you a giant hug, because knowing a human being like you is just a pleasure. I can tell you this, that your words will free people. I know I'm doing this study, and I would love to stay in touch and, trace the growth of this
Absolutely.
study. People would visit this website, growbeyondpain.com. For them, it's a tactical thing. You go to the website, you fill the survey, you
Mhm.
have that experience with me. But, while you and I are facilitating that, what you have to know about yourself, Giselle, is the quality of questions that you asked. I have written all questions down, and I was amazed that someone has thought about this deeply, who's not from my field. You and I look at the world with two very differently rich lenses, but your ability to connect the dots, I am blown away. I'm
Thank you.
blown away.
I mean,
Uh,
you're the influence here. Rita, and we will definitely meet one day. Once,
sure.
things settle down a little bit more, stay in touch with me, and Rita, you can
Yeah.
text me. I will be so happy to hear about all of the steps of the along the way. And for sure, I will be adding the link so people can
Yes.
participate. Don't worry, I'll
Right.
I'll definitely add it. But yes, feel free to message me. I don't mind. I'm here, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in the near future.
You bet. Stay blessed. Give my best to your partner. Give my best to those at home, and know that you are born to be blessed. And that's why we met. That's why we're talking. And this is science. And this is how science must help humanity. And so, thank you for being my partner. Thank you for giving this a
Thank you,
voice.
Rita. You too. You are also
Take
meant
care.
to be blessed. You have a beautiful, beautiful day. Talk to you
You too,
soon.
my dear.
All
Talk to you
right.
soon. Take care, Janelle.
Bye
Bye.
bye.